Welcome to the Hollywood Outsider, an award-winning weekly entertainment podcast. On this episode, we'll be discussing yet another attempt to remake The Crow, Bruce Willis's retirement, reviews of Everything Everywhere All at Once, and Morbius. And our topic this week is entertainment's latest obsession with the multiverse. No, not just Marvel, it's everywhere. Let's get on with the show. My name is Aaron Peterson. Joining me today are my fellow host, John Davenport.
Hey, buddy. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. And Troy Heinrichs.
Oscars are over now, right? Yeah, good. Grammys are here. Did anything happen? Was anybody slapped at the Grammys?
Nobody. But you know what I did find out? Literally every celebrity, including, I think, Richard Grieco, was asked what they thought about Will Smith's smack, which is just fantastic.
What meth hole did they find Richard Grieco in?
I don't know, but literally everyone in Hollywood has been asked this at this point. I mean,
Hi.
It's insane.
Come down the red carpet. They're like, "Hi, good to see you. Good to see you. Yeah. So who are you wearing today? Will Smith's handprint? What?
What?
Is that a Fresh Prince?
I heard Mel Gibson stopped an interview as soon as they asked him what he thought. And I don't blame him. I would be like,
there's no way he wins this on any side of the aisle.
Especially Mel Gibson.
Yeah. Run out of the room, dude. Just run. Okay, well, we're going to come back to that. Let's get away from it. We will discuss the latest, the slap heard around the world, like how it's ended up. It's a week and a half ago. I can't believe people are still talking about it. But we're going to wait until the end of the show because I know a lot of you are probably just sick to death of it. That way, you don't have to hear it. If you don't want to hear any of that conversation, you don't have to worry about it. But just know I am dubbing it Bad Boys for Wife. You're welcome. Have a nice day. I'm proud of that.
You should be. That was actually pretty good. That was really pretty. Did you get that yourself, or did you find it somewhere?
I have not seen it anywhere, and I was waiting for the podcast. I'm like, please, I don't want to see a headline that says that until we start. So at least I can say at that moment, I have not seen it nowhere.
That should be actually the image for this show should actually just be a black label with Bad Boys for Wife. Aaron Peterson.
No. Amanda won't be here this week, by the way. She's too busy. Apparently going to be on the box art for Lost City. So I don't know what to tell you. She's too good for the show now, so she can't be here. Oh, look. Nobody else in the crew cares.
Who?
I'll say, yeah. Who's Amanda?
I was just taking it in. Like, we're on the cover of a box art?
No, just Amanda.
No, well, it's just Amanda Sink, the Hollywood Outsider. Yeah, the future
that's us.
Marketing materials will feature Amanda. That's good for her. Congratulations, Amanda. You're not here, so we don't really have to say anything about it other than that.
That's physical and digital, from what I understand.
I haven't been here for about a month, so I don't even know who she is anymore.
That's right.
There are literally new listeners who don't know who you are, John. There are. They tune in for the Oscar talk, and they're like, who's this guy? Who's this guy? Where's he been? He's new.
Where's he been?
John, you've been gone for a little over a month, right? It's been a month, over a month, because you got a new job, so you've kind of been focusing on that.
I got a new job. I was able to finally procure a grown-up job, I guess you might want to call it. And it's a really good deal, and I'm really happy with it. So it's only been a month, and I don't know if I'm going to ever know what I'm doing at this job. So that's actually kind of cool.
I like the idea of a grown-up job.
Yeah. It's not one of these startups where you have 15 jobs at one job and they pay you for two or for half of one.
Okay.
But you get equity, though, in those startups that could turn into millions of dollars. Just work harder.
That's how they got me to sign up there in the first place. 14 years later.
Well done.
That job lasted longer than my marriage.
What? Jesus.
Yeah.
This went so dark, so fast. So dark, so fast. Dear God, man.
Welcome back to Deep Thoughts with
Jesus Christ. I ain't got time. Look, I do not want to get smacked by anybody, so we're going to move on. I'm just going to let that lie. All right. Unlike the Suicide Squad offshoot series Peacemaker and the Batman's Penguin that's coming out, I kind of want to mention this because Sherlock Holmes just announced that they are going to come out with, they're working on, theoretically, 2 new TV series that will be for HBO Max, I believe, that are going to be built around existing characters in the Sherlock Holmes film. The one with Robert Downey Jr., he's going to be producing it. And the one with Jude Law, there's supposed to be a Sherlock Holmes 3. They're taking some of those characters and they're actually pulling them and they're going to make spin-off TV shows from those characters. So that means all I care about from that whole thing is that means we are still getting Sherlock Holmes 3. Make as many goddamn Sherlock Holmes TV shows as you need to. Just give me my movie. Give me my third movie. That's all I care about.
But is the movie going to be at the expense of the TV shows because you're going to need
be set
content from the TV show? I mean, are they making like a universe out of this? It's like you have to watch the TV show first before you can watch the movie.
Well, first of all, I think Sherlock Holmes is the first multiverse that ever existed because look at how many of them there are. As far as I'm concerned, there's a Sherlock Holmes multiverse out there. And they're going to make Sherlock Holmes 3, in theory, the way that they're explaining this. And then they're going to take characters from that film and they're going to spin them off into their own series. So I don't think it'll affect the film. The film will tell whatever story it's going to tell. But then we're going to get a couple TV shows out of it later.
Got it. Film first, TV second.
Yes. Yep. The way I understand it. Yeah. Sounds great, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for more Sherlock Holmes.
I love
anytime you have a good mystery, anything, it's good quality because it's like you come in and you go, I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm going to sit here and watch this for 2.5, 3 hours because nobody understands what editing is anymore. But at the end, you're going to be like, wow, that was great. I never saw that coming.
So bitter. Just so bitter. Well, what's not so great is one thing I want to talk about, and that's The Crow. Apparently, they're moving forward with a remake yet again. I hesitate to even mention this because I swear it's like the fourth or fifth remake. The last one was going to be Jason Momoa. Now they're going with Bill Skarsgård. You know, Pennywise from It. Fine actor. Weird choice compared to the last choice, but he's going to be Eric Draven. It's going to be directed by Ghost in the Shell's Rupert Sanders. It's going to revamp James O'Barr's comic. It's going to tell the same tale of a murdered man who's resurrected to avenge he and his fiance's murder. And like I said, it's been rumored to be remade several times and it hasn't actually happened. This one feels probably closer than it has in a long time. My question is, and you know, I know, John, you know comics a lot. You're very well versed in comics. For the people that have never heard of you, they don't know who you are because you haven't been here before.
It's been an eternity.
It really has. Yeah. It feels, I think the last time you were on was when Brandon Lee was filming this. So it's
possible.
Been a minute.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So should they do this? Is this taboo at this point? Because my personal theory is, in terms of Eric Draven, let that character go. Let it be Brandon Lee's legacy.
Okay, so I don't want to be the person that sits there and says that something like this is sacred and shouldn't be touched or any of those other things. I'll tell you what my feelings as far as the original movie are is something where I loved it when it first came out. I've loved it most of the time in subsequent viewings. Now as an adult, I guess I've either aged out or the feeling of the movie just doesn't work for me anymore. I can definitely tell when he's there and when he's not there. And I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm just saying it just doesn't have the same impact. But why I think this movie can't be remade is because the mid 90s were a bit of a magical time where we had grunge and we had like a whole pseudo culture coming up that was mixed in with the grunge and mixed in with the gothic feel of everything. And I don't see a world right now where that feeling and that muddiness of The Crow can be remade today and work, just because of there's no grounding in today's world for it. You know, grunge isn't what it used to be. Alternative music isn't what it used to be. Goths aren't what they used to be. Like, they're all a lot more mainstream and brighter, which is weird to say about goths, but still,
that's fair.
They're still brighter and everything than they used to be back in the 90s. Back in the 90s, you saw a goth and that person would be like, I am like 2 seconds away from actually killing myself. And now they're all like, I like music. It's great. Look at all the black I'm wearing, so.
I feel like you insulted about 1 million different people in 1 million different ways just then. And I like it.
I like it too. That's kind of what I was going for.
So weird. It's going to make them go back into emo mode.
Right. So ultimately what I'm trying to tell you is that Eric Draven, if you want to remake it, that's fine. If you want to remake The Crow, go for it. But I don't think it's going to be as successful because the world isn't what it used to be back in the 90s.
You're thinking it's like Sin City if they were to do that now? Because it's not the same as the 90s?
Sin City is different because Sin City followed a comic and followed the aesthetic of that comic. to a T. Like you can't, there's no point in remaking Sin City because you can't perfect that. You can actually perfect The Crow, but it's never going to have the same impact because of just like who we are today versus who we were in the 90s.
See, I am of the mindset that it has nothing to do with the comic at all, because the comic, you could literally have any character be The Crow, have the same look, have the same makeup, visual aesthetic, and just do a different character. The comic did that, right? There were more than one Crow that was in the comic. Do that. It doesn't have to be Eric Draven. They did sequels that didn't have Eric Draven. Just do that. To me, Eric Draven is a character that Brandon Lee literally died performing the role because of the filming of that movie and the accidents on the set. You know, I just think it's wrong. I just think I feel like in my heart, in my soul, it's like, it's not an issue of you can't remake the movie. Any movie can be remade. There's always a different way to tell a story. It's just a matter of that particular character is kind of solidified with Brandon Lee. Let him have that. And I think it's a beautiful, when you watch the movie, it's kind of a beautiful testament to the actor himself because of how it ends and everything. I just think it's a beautiful ending. It still gets me every time. I watch it every year. I don't know what John's talking about. This movie hasn't changed for me at all. But then again, maybe I was a little goth in the 90s. I don't know. I like that. One of the best soundtracks of all time. Just everything about the movie works on a magical level for me. I just feel like it should be a rare exception where it's a tribute to the actor who perished making that movie.
And that's how I feel about The Crow. I mean, I know you like it. I have a good friend that likes it. I'm glad you guys like it. It was, for the time when it aired, it was good. I enjoyed the movie. I have no allegiance to The Crow. Could care less about The Crow today. It's just there. And because it's Brandon Lee and because of the situation around it, I think that in itself should say The Crow is off limits for eternity. Like, just let it stand, let it be its thing. Because of the situation and everything that happened, I think we just let it go.
Well, speaking of people we have to let go in a way, we got some kind of, it's crazy, right? I mean, and I'm glad we waited a little bit to talk about this because we had time for it to sink in to some degree. But it kind of, for somebody who's been a diehard, God damn it, I didn't mean to do that. Someone who's been a diehard fan of Bruce Willis for his entire career, this hit me almost like he passed away in many respects. But if you hadn't heard, I'm sure most people have, but if you hadn't heard, Bruce Willis's daughter, Rumor, she made it public. The family as a whole made it public, which is kind of beautiful that his ex-wife was involved in this notification as well. We just wanted to say that we wanted to share that our beloved Bruce has been experiencing some health issues and has recently been diagnosed with aphasia, which is impacting his cognitive abilities. That basically means that is a condition where the brain deteriorates, and you can put it akin to dementia. He's forgetting his lines. His brain is deteriorating, and so he's retiring from acting. He will not be acting anymore. And there's a lot of things that came up because of that, and I kind of want to talk about that. And, I apologize if you guys aren't as big of fans as I am, but Bruce Willis to me is literally like a factor to why the podcast exists to begin with. So I have to talk about Bruce Willis because to me, it's very close to losing an actor that was very close to my heart, even though he's still with us. So I want to talk about, well, before I get into that, did that news impact you guys the same as it impacted me, or am I alone in that? Because I don't know how strong of Bruce Willis fans you guys are.
I don't know if it was an impact per se, right? I mean, we all age, we all get older. I wear progressive lenses now. It's just a fact of life that things are going to shift. And it's sad when you hear someone who has a pretty decent career in the field having to step down because of a medical condition, right? And I think that he's done a lot. I think that he's really had some iconic characters. He's got some of the better franchises out there. He's got a great TV series out there under his name. He's accomplished and he's done so much in his career that it's okay to say like, hey, I'm done with my career and just want to go live life and figure out how to do that with this illness that he has in order to make the best out of the time he has left. Because there's probably going to be at some point with this disease that he's not going to be there. He might be alive, but he's not going to be there mentally. So I applaud him for being, the bigger person to say, hey, this is what's going on. This is the struggles I'm having. It's probably not safe on set for some people to be working with me. Therefore, I'm going to take the step back and just focus on me and figure out what I need to do for the next steps. And I applaud that, because not a lot of people can do that. Lots of people, Tom Brady, stay around much longer than they need to.
Nice.
Wait, did you buy the football?
Oh, is that why you're broke now? You bought that stupid football. I was wondering why you were panhandling.
Yeah. Oh man. So I used to absolutely adore Bruce Willis, and there wasn't a time that you can sit there and convince me that I wasn't going to go see and buy a Bruce Willis movie. I think right about the time of what was the one where the people would have themselves inserted into robots to be able to live outside because everyone started becoming agoraphobic, and they just do the whole AI thing and robots. Surrogates.
Oh,
Surrogates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that one.
Yep.
That was the last time I blind bought a Bruce Willis movie. And the reason why I blind bought it had nothing to do with him. It has more to do with the fact that I wanted something pretty for a brand new TV I bought so I can sit there and test out how great it looked. Anyhow, I absolutely adored everything he did, and up until a point, and then to watch how his career has been turning was always heartbreaking to me, because it was that connection to him wasn't there as strong, and that ability to sit down and watch what he was doing wasn't as strong, because it always looked like he was just showing up for a paycheck or something. Mm-hmm. As soon as this news came out, like, my brain found a way to automatically forgive him for everything I wasted my time on, and just look at the things I loved him for again. We just recently dropped an episode of not How Did This Get Made? That's somebody else's podcast.
Bad movie night. Jesus, man.
Maybe I need to go get checked out for aphasia. Anyhow,
I think so.
Did John just make a joke about a medical condition? Do I need to come across this and slap you?
Yeah. And that is what you get. If you die on this podcast, that is what you get. That is the penance.
Okay. I guess I lost my point, but Bruce Willis good now that he's sick.
Okay. Jesus Christ, John. All right, so I want to talk about.
I'm just betting 1,000 tonight.
God. I want to talk about a little bit of the kind of the steps, okay, in terms of like his accomplishments, and one in particular, and I know, Troy, you understand this more than anybody because you know TV better than anybody I know. His leap from TV to action hero was extremely rare for the time that he accomplished it. When he was on Moonlighting, TV actors, number one, didn't become movie stars. Very, very rare did that happen. Let alone did he go from, kind of a romantic comedy to a full-fledged action star. That was something that just never happened. He really opened the doors for a lot of other actors later in their careers.
Yeah, because you almost hear it going the other way, right? Where people are in the movies doing the thing, and then they're like, oh, their movie career is kind of slowing down, especially on the female side, right? They're not that same kind of young and sexy caliber that the studio is looking for, so they always go from from the big screen to the small screen.
Right.
So to see, especially because when Die Hard comes out in '88, this is during the TV run, so he's actually still doing the TV show while he's actually doing Die Hard, and being able to balance both of those things. I mean, that's pretty impressive, because normally on those TV series, right, you're doing 22 episodes a year, sometimes even longer back in the day, sometimes 30, and to have the time off to just completely change your mindset from an acting perspective, it just showed how versatile he was as an actor, to be able to go from comedic shtick to, yippee-ki-yay. And it was fabulous. I mean, it was just fun, because it was a way to say, here's a Schwarzenegger commando that doesn't have to be all testosterone. You could have the commando type person doing the action flick, but bring in a little bit of humor. And that little bit of humor, I think, is what solidified him as a bona fide movie star.
Well, and I mean, you're speaking to the different kind of action hero he was, which is the everyman, right? Which was not the action hero before Die Hard, in my opinion. There's a few of them here and there, but really it was the Stallone, it was Schwarzenegger, it was Jean-Claude Van Damme. It was huge guys that kicked a lot of ass and were very imposing when you saw them. Here's a guy who is not a superhero. He's bleeding through the whole damn thing. I have no idea how he didn't lose consciousness at any point. He's barely alive at the end, and he screws up a lot. Like he is not a comic book version of Schwarzenegger or Stallone. He's an everyday guy just trying to survive and just trying to save his wife and the other hostages. And he created like a whole reinvention of what an action hero could be, which still extends to today. I mean, if you really think about it, Die Hard was the opening of the door that led to Bourne Identities, John Wick, and stuff like that, where you have just regular looking guys that can be action stars. And it's worked for 35 plus years.
And you would say that, he's really still playing actually kind of the same character for Moonlighting, right? Because he's doing everything he can for Sybil Shepherd's character in the TV show. He's doing this whole thing for his wife, right? So it's really the same character. The difference is that it's just not in an office setting. It's now in a mega office setting.
Right. Oh, and I mean, just speaking of David Addison, going back to that for a second, I can't tell you how important, and I'm not using that term loosely, how important that character is in my personality. I learned sarcasm from Dan Fielding on Night Court and David Addison on Moonlighting. And I've said this on the show before, like those two characters are so pivotal. Shit. Now I just feel like John. Pivotal to my existence as a human being. Like how I live life, how I smile is from Moonlighting. It's insane to me how important Bruce Willis has been in my mental development, I guess. I don't know how to word that, but he's been very impactful in so many ways. And as John McClane, because there's an honor code with John McClane. There's you always do what's right. There's that code of, I'm going to do it because it's the right thing to do. Even if I don't want to do it, I'm going to do the right thing because I believe very wholeheartedly in that. And that character that's very much part of his DNA. But it wasn't just Die Hard. He had so many memorable roles, and I kind of want to see what you guys have as your favorites, but I want to mention some of the movies. This is just a collection of the movies he's been in, right? Or TV show as well, Moonlighting, of course. Die Hard, the whole series of Die Hard, minus that last one, because that one sucked. The Last Boy Scout, The Fifth Element, Pulp Fiction, 12 Monkeys, The Whole Nine Yards, The Story of Us is a personal favorite of mine that nobody ever talks about. The Sixth Sense, Unbreakable, Armageddon, Killer of Night, if you're feeling a little freaky and you want to see his penis. Sin City, Look Who's Talking, Red, Looper. That any actor would be thrilled to have a couple of those on their resume. He's got all of them. What are your favorites?
Off the top of my head, I gotta say that my favorite happens to be The Last Boy Scout, closely followed by Death Becomes Her.
That's a nice pull. I like that.
Yeah, I like, The Last Boy Scout. Loved it because it's the closest thing we can get to a 90s version of a Mickey Spillane detective novel. And it does it extremely well. And then...
Wait, before you move on, do you believe he humped that squirrel?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, just checking. You can continue.
Absolutely.
Hard-hitting news.
I just want to know where you stood. I feel like it's an important aside.
And then in Death Becomes Her, it just goes to show you just how convertible of a person he is, because in that movie, he's got like 3 different faces that he ends up using. It's like an old age makeup, and then there's a young version of himself, and he blends through that character so fully. And another like underscoring that whole everyman kind of character that he is, the Jackal, where he literally it's like his face, but he makes the slightest change to his appearance, and he's a completely different person.
Well, I mean, you have to remember that he's a great voice actor too. We go back to Look Who's Talking and Look Who's Talking 2. You take that all the way up to doing TV series and Bruno the Kid, as well as a few other ones where he was just the voice. And you combine that with like The Whole Nine Yards. Stupid movie, but so fun at the same time because of what he does in it.
Yeah, I like that movie.
And you got the favorites, right? Like, who doesn't love Harry Stamper in Armageddon? The Fifth Element is fantastic. You have The Siege is actually really, really great. And then you also have 12 Monkeys. Like, without 12 Monkeys, you wouldn't get the 12 Monkeys TV series, which I think was actually better than the movie. And Madeline Stowe makes a guest appearance in the TV series.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool. I never watched the show. I just watched the movie.
So yeah, it's really a huge plethora of artistic talent that he brought to the silver screen and to the small screen. And it's going to be sad that he's gone.
My God, and just thinking about the lines, yippee-ki-yay, Zed's dead, and touch me again, I kill you. That's a great one from Last Boy Scout. Because he does it. I think that's great. He just does it.
I'm going to dance a jig. I tell you what, if we make it through this, I'm going to dance a jig.
So good. Well, moving on, I mean, from his just amazing collection of roles throughout time, I mean, we're talking, God, pretty much almost a 40-year career. He's almost at a 40-year career at this point. I think Moonlighting started in 85, so we're not far
85 to 89, yeah.
Yeah, we're not far off. It's pretty amazing. Well, he does have the occasional reputation as difficult to work with. There's a quote from Antoine Fuqua, who worked with him on Tears of the Sun. He said, "We got along off camera, but shooting Tears of the Sun, we just didn't get along. Some men don't gel when it comes to work. You have different work ethics, different opinions, different points of view, different methods of filmmaking, and we didn't gel. Off camera, we were friends. Bruce is great, but we just don't get along when it comes to work, and that's pretty much it." Now, I was going through because a lot of people have loved to say, well, he's been so difficult to work with. And it's usually along those same lines where he felt very differently about how the project was going, but they got along great. How do you guys feel about this particular aspect of his reputation? I know Kevin Smith famously has kind of picked him apart from Cop Out. I think he should be more embarrassed by the movie Cop Out. But in terms of...
You hold your tongue. That's a great movie.
It is not that at all. How do you feel in terms of this reputation? Because, the reason why I think it's interesting now is because, recently we had this whole issue with Will Smith, which, is driving people crazy. And I know it's a completely different thing because it's a public stage. It's basically a workplace, blah, 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 blah. The reputation is he's difficult to work with. Not that he was anything illegal or anything, just difficult. Does that bother you? Does that taint his legacy in any way in your eyes based on what you know?
I mean, I totally get it. I've been living it for 10 years. Aaron's great to hang out with as a friend, but man, fucking slave driver. I tell you.
What an asshole.
The thing I have to say about that is that it is one of those things where ultimately you got to remember what's happening on a movie, I guess. It's not just a director trying to convey his vision, but it's also the actor trying to portray what he sees on the screen as well. And I could see how people with a difference of opinion or difference of creative juices can actually bump heads, because especially when you get to the point where Antoine Fuqua was dealing with him in the peak of his, not even the peak, like he didn't really have a peak. He went up, plateaued, and then dropped. Like he was still on that plateau for Tears of the Sun. So that's somebody who cares about what he's doing. That's somebody who wants to put out the best thing he possibly can. And he's going to deliver on what he knows he can deliver on. So is he going to be difficult? Sure. Do I forgive that? I don't know. It's not my problem. As long as I enjoy what I saw, I guess I'm fine.
I think it also goes to work ethic versus who you are as a person. Like sometimes pandemic really showed this to a lot of people, right? We all ended up working from home, and you could hear the people like, oh, well, that's not my husband. That's work Troy. Like I got that in my house a lot. And it was like, he's completely different. And I think that when you are just dedicated to your craft and dedicated to putting out excellent work, you tend to be a little bit anal sometimes. You tend to be a little bit difficult to deal with because it's all for the greater good. You're really looking out for the final product and how you're going to come across in it. If you then take that and become a complete dickhead in your regular life, well, then you're a dickhead, right? But if you're actually like, oh man, that was fun, great scene, good, I'll see you guys at the bowling alley this weekend. It's a completely different perspective on the person, right? We're not judging the person based on his on-camera musings. It's just his work persona at that time.
And I think it's important to remember, I mean, people that are passionate about their job, and by all accounts that I've read, and I've read a lot on Bruce Willis, he loves what he does. He loves acting, he loves performing. And not so much like the public adoration. I think everybody knows he's famously not a lover of interviews. He loves the work. He loves doing the acting. He loves having fun on set and everything else. And as someone else who does a lot of behind the scenes, who wears the weight of a show on their shoulders because they have to do a lot of it's kind of on their back. Troy, you can be like this too. I'm just
100%. 100%.
I think sometimes when, you're wearing a lot of hats, it can get overwhelming because you care so much, and that can impact your mood. Doesn't mean that you're impossible to deal with, but it can make you difficult at times because you want things right, and I'm not saying that that's the case. I don't know him personally, but I have talked to several directors that have worked with Bruce Willis, and they all have said the same thing. We're actually going to include one of those interviews with Matt Eskandari here in a second, where he talked about working with Bruce and how Bruce is very, he just wants you to have a vision when he shows up. He just doesn't want to he wants to know that you know what movie you're making, Kevin. So that brings us to his later career. These past few years, I knew aspects of this because I've talked to some people who had, and I'm not going to name who they were, but they specifically had worked with Bruce Willis and said specifically to me, just don't make fun of him doing what he's doing currently. Someday it'll make sense. And I'll never forget that. And I haven't made fun of it. Others have on the show, John, but I haven't. I felt strong to that. And, I didn't quite understand what it meant. Obviously I do now. That it seems, nobody really knows, but it seems, maybe you guys agree, I hope so, that he's been doing these roles where he can show up for a few days, get paid $1 million or $2 million, not have to work that hard or that long, and then move on to the next thing. Not a whole lot's expected of him. He's basically utilizing his name to build up his bank account. It would seem now, would it not, that these last few years have been about stockpiling because he knew he would have to retire at some point. Like he couldn't keep going. Would you guys agree that that's how it seems?
Yeah, totally.
Totally.
Do you think people should feel bad about judgment on that?
No.
I don't either, actually. You still judge people by their work, right?
Yeah, you still judge them by their work. And this is one of those things where we pick on Nicolas Cage for the fact that it was obvious that he was showing up for a paycheck for so many different movies.
He never phoned it in. He never phoned it in, though. I would say
that may be so. And now, and now that Nicolas Cage has paid his dues, from what I understand, and we might start seeing quality out of Nicolas Cage again. But still, we still pick on him for picking the movies that he chose. I can't say that. I guess maybe. You know what? Yeah, Nicolas Cage got himself into that trouble. There's no getting himself. Bruce Willis can't control the fact that he has aphasia. Yeah, I don't know. I just talked myself out of it. I'm out.
No, but it's valid though. You're from the concept of he's doing the work to do the work, right? Nicolas Cage is just doing the work because he loves the work. He's taking what he can get. He's putting food on the table, and because he's doing the work, he's now got a movie that's sitting at 100% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes.
True. It doesn't make me feel. I didn't make those jokes, but a lot of that has to do with. I did know that from someone that I trust had said that to me a couple of years back. But on the same token, I also, as a fan, I just don't want to pick apart one of my personal heroes. Like in terms of film stars, Bruce Willis is up there for me. Like he's a top 5. Not necessarily in terms of he's the greatest thespian that ever lived. I won't put him in that conversation, but one of the best movie stars that ever lived, absolutely, 100%. I think he's up there. He's carried movies on his back multiple times that should not have been good. Armageddon is really stupid from start to finish. Like as an idea, as a concept, it's dumb as hell. But Bruce Willis, you can just tell he believes in the movie and it shines through and you're like, man, I'm in on it. I'm crying in this dumb ass asteroid movie. I don't understand why I'm crying at the end. And I do. And it hits me. I think he's a movie star. There aren't many of them left in the world anymore, and he hasn't obviously been one for a few years. But these last few years, he's taken parts, and you got to judge people by what you see on screen. You can't, as long as things aren't personal, I think it's okay. Like if you're just like the people that kept taking cheap shots at him because he was doing all these roles, and that's a little bit of a different story. I think they're probably having some major regrets. But if you're judging like that was weak performance, that was, a lesser performance, I think that's fair. Fair game. Before we move on, is there anything else you guys want to say about Bruce Willis?
Go with God.
He's not dead.
Only because you didn't know his name was Jesus.
It's not hey Zeus. I'm not Puerto Rican. It's hey Zeus.
My name is Zeus.
Oh my God.
Still one of the best sequences ever. I laugh every time.
Die Hard with a Vengeance is probably my favorite outside of the first one, but I gotta say, I just watched Live Free or Die Hard again. That scene he's got in the car where they're just talking about, that guy, that's why you're that guy. I love that scene. I think that's just a beautiful, simplistic scene that really just carefully explains who John McClane is. Love that scene. Well, we interviewed Matt Eskandari, as I talked about, for Survive the Night in 2020, which Bruce Willis was a star. And I asked him specifically about working with Bruce Willis. He had actually worked with him several times. And we wanted to leave you with some of his thoughts on working with Bruce Willis. So you have an opinion from someone who has multiple times worked with the man, so he knows who he is. Take a listen. So the big kahuna, one of my favorite actors of all time, David Addison, way before John McClane, in my opinion. I'll always prefer David Addison over John McClane, but they're both great. Was it daunting to know you would be directing an icon? And by the way, I had his albums. I had them, and I enjoyed them.
Oh, wow. Wait, Bruce has albums? I didn't know that.
Oh, really? Oh, my God. Yeah. Bruno. Yes.
Oh, dude.
I would listen to them constantly. I had them on cassette because I was a teenager. I didn't really have much. They didn't have CDs back then, Matt. And, Bruce Willis had some albums, and he was a really good singer.
Wait, was it like harmonica, jazz kind of stuff, or
bluesy?
Blues?
Very bluesy, but it was catchy, and he's got that cool, fun singing tone. He was really good at it. Really good at it.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I wish I wrote that into the script.
Where he just starts singing.
But working with Bruce, this was actually the second time I got to work with him.
Mm-hmm.
The first time was in Trauma Center, which was like a learning experience, because the way these movies are made is they're shot like 12 or 10 days. The whole movie is shot in 12 or 10 days, multiple cameras. It's almost like an episode of network TV where they shoot like 70 pages in like 8 days or something. I mean, it's pretty insane how much we get done in 10, 12 days. And Bruce shows up for 2 days, and he has to be in 25 minutes. So he got 25 pages to shoot in 2 days with Bruce. And it's challenging because if he's in a lot of locations or, so the first film, Trauma Center, it was like a learning experience.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, first of all, why are we giving him a script where his character is giving these boring, expositional monologues or, these things, scenes without stakes, really, without any emotional stakes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, this is fucking Bruce Willis, man. This is an icon, man. 100 years from now, people are going to look they're going to look at his filmography and they're going to, want to see what movies are pretty good and okay. And, he's actually someone who people are going to look back on. So let's give him an interesting character. You know what I mean? I mean, even though, we only get him for 20 minutes in the movie, but let's try to maximize the hell out of those. You know what I mean? And and I noticed he likes doing action, obviously, because he's an action star. He loves doing action. But he also really likes doing more intimate character stuff where it's just him sitting down, talking to another person and they're having this conversation. So he loves doing that kind of stuff. And I was like, well, why don't we just write most of the movie where he's playing Bruce, but also we give him some meat, you know what I mean? He has to emote and, go through some character arc and, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I went back and the script, which was originally called The Long Night, I was like, okay, now that I've worked with Bruce, I know what he likes doing and what his strengths are, and let me rewrite and what I can accomplish in 2 days. Basically, you get 16 hours. I mean, what are you going to, don't get too ambitious and try to shoot too many random scenes of Bruce if it's pointless, you know what I mean? Just maximize the best you can. So I went back in there and made sure that there was a clear arc for his character. He has these quiet moments. You get to see different sides to him, his relationship with his son, his relationship with his wife, after his wife, after everything that happens. I don't want to spoil it, but he's got to deal with that trauma and that pain. And at the same time, he has to kind of accept the fact that his son is who he is and sort of like hand the reins off to him and come full circle. So there's a lot more there. And it was interesting. The moment Bruce showed up on set for this movie, I could tell there was like a difference in the way he's like, oh, the script is really good, man. I was like, whoa, shit. Oh, thanks, Bruce. I was like, whoa. He's like, he already was like throwing out ideas. He's like, what if I'm like this alcoholic and this? And I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah. Like, yeah. So I love that, Bruce. So he was just like throwing ideas out there. He's like, what if I have this Southern accent? And I was like, I don't know about that. I don't know if we're going to be able to pull that.
Oh, you get that wrong. Like, that's going to backfire.
Yeah, that's because because we don't get enough takes to like finesse stuff. So I was like,
right.
let's just stick to what it is. But right away, like the first scene we shot was him and Chad. It was like that first scene together, and he just like turned it on. And I was like, whoa, man, this is amazing, man. Like Bruce is on, man. I love it. So it was like a totally different experience because like the guy has done so many movies, literally any genre you can imagine. He's done it, right? So it's like if you're going to give him a script and a story, give him something interesting. The dude is an artist. He wants to do interesting work. And there's only so much you can do in 2 days. And, I think we maximize it. Like I dare anybody to find a movie with Bruce shot in 2 days with as much footage as we shot of him, with like a real art to it. You know what I mean? And he cries in a scene. You know what I mean? I'm like, find me a movie like in his repertoire in the last 10 years that he's done something like this. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I mean, obviously M. Night movies are a totally different thing, but M. Night has them for like 2 weeks. You know what I mean? It's totally different.
Right.
They're shooting a page a day with Bruce. You know what I mean? They're not shooting 20 pages a day. So it's a different ball game. But yeah, I mean, it was a great experience. I mean, Bruce he's an interesting actor in that, like Shay, like I was saying, Shay like makes interesting choices. Bruce is the same way. He's unpredictable. When he's really like in the moment, he just does things that are sometimes are like little things. He'll just like, there's a moment in the movie later on when he's outside in the woods and he's running away from the bad guys. And in the script, it's just, okay, Bruce, you fall against this tree, you look back, and then you get up and you take off. And I'm like, okay, like it's a pretty simple 2 seconds in the movie. And then when I call action, he just does something completely different. You know what I mean? Like it was just like he gets up and he screams as loud as he can, and then he collapses, and then he whispers his wife's name, and then he just like takes off. And I was like, what the fuck was that?
What just happened?
like I was like laughing about in the moment. I was like, whoa, that was kind of crazy. I mean, I was like, that would never make the movie or whatever. But then, my editor looks at the footage. He was like, dude, that was genius, man. Like Bruce captured the pain and everything. I was like, holy shit, I just realized that's like a perfect, yeah, man. What the hell was that? Like, that was genius, man. That was like a genius choice to just do something random and like elevate the moment. You know what I mean? And he does that with little things all the time. Like there'll be a scene where he has to get up and warn his son about something. And instead of just like getting up a certain way, he'll get up and like push up aside or like throw something. And I was like, whoa. You know what I mean? Like he's just unpredictable. And that's the one thing is if you look at all great, really great actors, what makes them great is like Daniel Day-Lewis, all these like genius actors, they make unpredictable choices that make them stand out from the boring actors, the boring people, that safe choices like, oh, I see a scene where I get to cry. Okay, I'm just going to cry here. You know what I mean? Like finding an artist or an actor does something completely different, which is sometimes wrong, right? Sometimes it's like, what the fuck? Like that was totally wrong. But like when you get to those level of caliber of actors, you realize like, okay, now I know why these actors are A-list actors, because they're just unpredictable. They do things differently. You know what I mean? They just have sort of an intuition or an instinct, and they like elevate scenes and just do things in different ways. You know what I mean? And it's just like, oh, it's cool.
Absolutely. And what's funny about him is when you say icon, I say icon. He literally is an icon. I mean, it's an overused term, I think, today, but he's been around since the 80s, and he's been successful in every decade since then. That's hard to. I mean, there aren't many that can claim that. You might have like a Harrison Ford here and there, but the majority of actors cannot claim that, and Bruce Willis can. That's a feat. That's a true accomplishment for an actor.
Totally. Yeah, no, it's definitely, it shows the longevity of, his career, and he's just done so much. It boggles my mind when I look at his filmography. I'm just like crazy.
Yeah. My mom still swears that I smirk. I don't really smile, and she blames Bruce Willis for that.
Nice.
But I do want to ask, okay, because he has this almost mythology behind him where it's hard to know what is true and what is just bitterness for his success. How was it? You kind of talked about it. How was it for you to direct Bruce Willis? Was it difficult, or was he? No, it was a great experience for you.
No, I mean, for me, it was a great experience. I mean, I could see like my first time on set with him, I could tell that if you didn't exactly clearly have a vision, and if you pussyfooted around anything, or if you weren't like really firm on what you wanted, or if you know what I mean? Like, I could see other directors having issues, because once you get to a certain caliber of an actor, man, you're getting paid. Don't waste his time, or don't waste her time. You know what I mean?
They know how to do it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I've heard stories like Kevin Smith. He's like, hated his experience working on Bruce. And I'm just, well, maybe it was you, Kevin. I mean, I don't know, man. Like, maybe you just didn't know what the hell you wanted. And, because like some directors have this style where they let actors kind of do what they want, or they don't give like clear direction or something. And when you're dealing with somebody on Bruce's caliber, he's worked with fucking, you name it, man, like biggest directors in Hollywood who know exactly what they want, like Michael Bay and, M. Night. Like, M. Night knows exactly where Bruce is, like, how to say every little beat, and his clothes and his costume. And I watched some of the behind the scenes stuff of other directors working with Bruce, and it was interesting watching Bruce talk about like M. Night and his relationship. And he's like, yeah, Night would tell me, like, M. Night, man, he would tell him exactly what he wanted. So Bruce trusted his vision. You know what I mean? Like, he put himself into Night's hands. And I was like, okay, well, I mean, I'm not going to get to work with Bruce for, 2 months like Night, but at least, I'll get, a couple of days, and I'll, I want to make sure that those couple of days Bruce is like, okay, this kid knows what he's doing. You know what I mean? Like, he knows what he wants. So that was the whole impetus. And it's not just Bruce. I mean, like I said, a lot of A-list actors, they're going to, unless you go in there knowing exactly what you want, how you want it, it's not going to be a pleasant experience, because they're going to resist. And then when an actor loses faith or loses trust in the director, it's challenging.
All right. Thank you. Remember, you can go to our website, thehollywoodoutsiders.com. You can join our Facebook group. We are The Hollywood Outsider on Facebook. You got to look for it. It's a private group. And we're on Twitter @BuyPopcorn. Our show is independently funded. Patreon helps fans support their favorite podcasts. Welcome, Nicole Neal. Thank you for your support. Welcome to the family. And once you sign up, you get immediate access to all the content in your respective tier, including Bad Movie Night, where we just talked about Hudson Hawk. We have a bonus episode, which will be coming out later this month. Now that you understand what it is, if you want to support the show, go to patreon.com/TheHollywoodOutsider. That's patreon.com/TheHollywoodOutsider. Now, I've got a question. You guys listening?
No.
Okay, that doesn't help me. That doesn't help me at all.
But the listeners are listening.
Exactly. All right, so my question is, who doesn't pine for Pine? The Contractor is out. It is starring Chris Pine. It's now in theaters and available on digital and on demand. When a discharged elite special forces sergeant, who's played by Chris Pine, is desperate to provide for his family, he contracts with a private military force and unravels a deep conspiracy, sending him on the run for his life. Buy or rent The Contractor and watch it today. It's rated R from Paramount Pictures. You can read my written review on the website. I should also mention that Ben Foster's in this movie, so it's kind of a reunion with Hell or High Water, if you ever saw that beautiful film. So check out The Contractor. We're also giving away 5 digital copies of The Contractor. If you're interested, email us, contests@thehollywoodoutsiders.com. That's contests@thehollywoodoutsiders.com. Use the subject line, The Contractor, leave your name, and you will be entered into a contest to win one of those 5 copies. Now let's go to spoiler-free reviews. Dear God, we're going to talk about Morbius.
Aaron, you got to see Morbius, and so for those people
is
who don't...
not the way that I would word that. I would just not word it that way.
He drew the short straw in the reviews this week.
Wait, we're supposed to do reviews?
The people that still show up for the podcast, yes, yeah,
right. All right. So let's see.
I didn't do any reviews either. I'm still here.
Let's unravel this for everyone. A biochemist, Michael Morbius, tries to cure himself of a rare blood disease, but inadvertently infects himself with a form of vampirism instead. Aaron, you got to see this wonderful masterpiece starring Jared the Man Leto.
What the hell?
I got some questions for you. You ready?
Yeah, whatever gets you away from that voice, please.
All right. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know why that voice came out, but it was a lot of fun while I did it. Okay, so one of the things I've heard about this movie is that it's weird and confusing camera work, unrelatable characters, and it feels very soulless and generic. Is that fair?
Jesus, you got right for the jugular. See what I did there? It would have
been better if you did that in your vampire voice.
I want to talk about Morbius. Yeah, I think all that's accurate. It's wild because I don't think this is actually Daniel Espinosa is not a bad director. He directed this, right? He also did Life. Do you remember that movie Life? Jake Gyllenhaal and it's kind of
yes, I do remember it.
He did that one. I think he's a very talented director. There's a lot in this movie where I'm like, okay, this should be a really good movie. It should, but it feels like there's about 20 pages of the script missing. I mean, there's literally like jumping leaps from point to point to point. I'm like, why? How did we get here? What is happening? Why is this happening? Why are these characters doing this thing? Why does so-and-so want to kill so-and-so now? That makes no goddamn sense. So there's a lot of that. So it doesn't feel like a complete movie. I think all the performances are good. And I feel like they're trying to do the best they can. Jared Leto is actually doing a solid job. Matt Smith plays Milo, who's his best friend. He's actually kind of fantastic because he's literally chewing every ounce of scenery he can when he gets the opportunity. So, I mean, it's a solid cast, and I think they're trying, but I just feel like the script is 20 pages short, man. So, God, just what the hell? I mean, literally, like the last half hour, I'm like, how do we get here? What? There's a whole lot of what. And then you get the post-credit stingers, you know, where Marvel always has, where it's tying up what's going to come next. And none of that makes any damn sense. Not an ounce of it makes any sense.
Wow. I almost hate to ask this next question, but I'm going to anyways.
Go for it.
So this next question comes with a little bit of an explainer. So Daniel Espinosa says, when I did my first feature, it was a small movie called Babylon Disease. Espinosa says, I remember one day going home on the subway, someone nudged me on the train and said, I have to tell you what's wrong with the second scene of your feature. And I was like, well, okay. So he tells this story to illustrate the fact that he's willing to listen to a lot of the criticism to himself because to what he does, because he thinks that he is his hardest critic. He actually says he hates himself. Do you think he learned his lesson?
I got to say, I don't think he's the problem with the movie. I really don't. I feel like the editing is a little bit of a factor. The screenplay is definitely a factor. And I also think Sony is probably a factor because they're probably cutting this thing all to hell. Like they're just cutting out bits and pieces of it and making it hard because you can tell like some of the action scenes are actually very, very, very kick ass. I mean, they're just shot in a way where it's fascinating to watch. And you're like, okay, this is kind of riveting. This is getting the adrenaline going. This is exciting. This is interesting. I think the special effect work is actually pretty cool. They use digital for vampire effects as opposed to constant creature effects. They use both though, but I mean, they complement each other well. Like there's some very cool vampire features. I don't understand how it really connects to the Spider-Man universe. And I'm a huge Spider-Man fan. I know who the character is. I don't understand why he has his own movie. I don't think it's the director's fault. The script is the problem. Visually, it looks great. It's just edited poorly. It's missing some pages. I don't understand what they were going for, and I don't think they did either. It's actually never boring. That's the funny part. I wasn't bored once in this bad movie.
All right. Okay, Aaron. It's been confirmed, and we know this about Jared Leto with a lot of the other stories of when he's making movies.
Oh,
so it's been confirmed that Jared Leto was so method in this that even when his character is supposed to be able-bodied and walking around like a normal character, he would insist on using the crutches back and forth from the bathroom, which would create these big 45-minute long breaks because he was terrible at the crutches. Do you think this whole method thing of his is going a little bit over the top, especially for this role, or do you think that you can see that it really enhanced the role for it? Yeah,
just like an enhanced Joker, right? When he sent condoms to people. I I don't understand. Okay. We just got done talking about like intolerable behavior from Hollywood, right? I mean, that's been on everybody's lips for the last couple weeks because of the Oscars and everything else. This is a prime example of what shouldn't be tolerated. I don't, if you want to be a method actor, that's fine. Daniel Day-Lewis is a method actor. But if it impacts the crew, finances, other people's time, you're officially just being a dick. Like, it stops being about the art and it starts being about your ego. And there's nothing in Morbius where I'm like, oh, thank God he did. Thank God he took 45 minutes to pee. That really solidified the grandiose nature of that dramatic performance. Bravo. That never happened. Just like it didn't happen with the Joker. I'm glad you got an Oscar, Jared Leto. Good for you. You did great to get that Oscar. But I have no idea how you think this is okay and how Hollywood tolerates it. I mean, really, you're not even a big movie star. You've never really been in anything that really made a ton of money. Why would anyone tolerate this? There are other actors that could play this role just fine. I think he's fine in the role. I don't think he's bad in it. Did he elevate it to some kind of level? No. Hell, Tom Hardy's known to be a dick, and he wasn't even a dick on Venom and made that thing pop. So I don't know. I just don't understand. I get method. That's not method. That's maybe get something checked upstairs.
Okay.
You know?
All right. My final question, Aaron, is what's your final score on the movie?
If $10 is the full price of admission, I give Morbius $4.
Wow.
It's missing 20 freaking pages of information that would make the movie make sense. It literally leaps from points to points that make no sense. It rushes through so many things. It's a frustrating movie to watch because the potential is there. Because obviously you have one of the best performances of all time, right? Because the guy makes people wait for 45 minutes to pee. So yeah, that's my final score.
All right. Well, that sounds bad, but moving right along.
We are going to talk about Everything Everywhere All at Once. Amanda was not able to make the show, but we did review it for South by Southwest. In case you didn't listen to it, the review is here. It is going wide on April 8th. So you will be able to see that movie finally if you don't have it in your city. Definitely go see it. It's one of the most creative movies I have seen in a long time. But here's the review if you missed it. I love this movie. Freaking love this movie. All right. Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Woo!
It's a hilarious and big-hearted sci-fi action-adventure about an exhausted Chinese-American woman played by Michelle Yeoh who can't seem to finish her taxes. The whole concept of this movie is that she owns a laundry. She's called in by...
She owns a laundry? She owns a laundromat.
Laundromat.
That's what they're called.
Whatever. So
she owns a laundry.
She's called in by an auditor. It's the same freaking thing. She owns...
No, it's not. Laundry is what you take to the laundromat. This is hilarious.
Whatevs. So she goes to the IRS to talk to a tax auditor because her taxes are a mess. And when she gets there, it goes full Matrix. And she is accosted by her own husband, but it's a different husband. It's like a multiverse husband who is telling her that he needs your help to save the world. And she has to come to grips with this. And then there is this just crazy explosion of the multiverse, her ability to basically hack into other versions of herself in other universes and assume their powers and whatnot to use it towards thwarting villains because she's trying to take on this very ominous force. And it's her husband, her daughter, Jamie Lee Curtis as this tax auditor is also a very big pivotal character. Amanda, what did you think about Everything Everywhere All at Once? It's so hard to describe this movie, but literally there is no genre for it.
It crosses the multiverse of genres even. It is wild. It is bonkers. It is funny. The fight scenes, the choreography are insane. Ki Hwa Kwan. He's fantastic. His choreography and his scenes are beyond what I anticipated and hoped for. I mean, truly, they were just magnificent. Jamie Lee Curtis, mwah. I love her. Chef's kiss. She is tremendous in this and absolutely hilarious. Honestly, the entire cast is at the top of their game. They're so much fun. And I truly just don't understand how all of this came from two men's minds, how this came from anybody's mind, and how they managed to bring it to fruition and put it on screen. Mm-hmm. Because if you were to describe to your friend and say, hey, I wrote this movie, and they say, what's it about? And they were to tell them, if the Daniels were to tell them everything that they did in this movie, they'd be like, are you crazy? Do you need help? Because it is so bonkers, but it's glorious at every moment.
It's glorious. It's pervy. It's funny. There's a lot of action. Short Round is here. I mean, that's really enough for me. Jamie Lee Curtis is totally just playing a character. I mean, she's not even playing a role she normally would play. It's pretty wild what she does. Michelle Yeoh is just given an opportunity to finally, it's not fair to say finally, but I feel like she's always pigeonholed as just a martial artist in a lot of her movies. She's a very talented actress, and she gets to really, really expand on that in this and show exactly who she is and what she can do in terms of acting. And my God, you were not kidding. There's so much it's so hard to explain the movie without really spoiling something, because if you had a kitchen sink, this is the throw everything but the kitchen sink in there. I think they threw the sink too. I think they really just threw everything they'd ever thought of, every crazy idea, and threw it into this movie. And most of it really works. And there's a lot of stuff. There are rocks talking to each other. There are butt plugs. There are all kinds of things. I can't even say what happens with these things. I'm just saying they are part of the movie, and it works.
Honestly, even saying that doesn't spoil anything, because no one could predict what they're going to do with these things.
A lot of times something will show up and you're like, well, I don't know if that's going to be useful. Oh my God, that was a part of the movie. Okay. I thought that was just a joke. I thought it was offhanded.
And it's so clever, though. Yeah. It's so clever how they incorporate these things that they know are going to make you laugh, and every 8-year-old in the world laugh. But please don't show this to your children. I don't think you should show this to your children.
On the same token, I will say, as the film goes, there is really a really human element of mental health and depression and generational trauma. I believe someone used that term.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just because a lot of things are how much of what you teach your kids is what was forced upon you that it might not be the best thing for you. And maybe you're not living your dreams because you're so stuck in the way your parents wanted you to be, stuff like that. And that's, because her dad, Michelle Yeoh's dad is played by James Hong. And he's very traditional, and she kind of goes against tradition in some respects. So it's a lot of this stuff is like, there's a really pivotal, deep, impassioned story at play, as well as the craziest ideas and theories and possibilities you could come up with. This is what a multiverse should be, by the way.
Absolutely.
It's bonkers.
And there's you and I kind of talked about this after the movie as well. There's this really impactful storyline that doesn't get missed. It's not like they're being incredibly subtle with it. It's just not the primary focal point, but it is significant enough. And it is a lesbian child, and you see the struggle from both her perspective of trying to get her parent to accept her, and also the parent's perspective of trying to accept it and learn, and also just that keeping with tradition. I think you mentioned that with, you're passed along these ideals from your parents. And so from generation to generation, it's hard to break that and create your own concept of what you believe is okay versus what your parents just taught you or your community taught you is okay. Society says for generations, no, this isn't okay. And you kind of have to come to terms, Michelle Yeoh does, what do I believe? What am I okay with? And how does this affect my child? And how does this affect me? And kind of those boundaries. And so there's a lot of underlying conversation about that too, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah. But I will tell you, the only issue I had was it's about 20 minutes too long. Like, I did feel like there was a time where we should be wrapping this up. And that's the only thing that really hurts. I think it should have been tightened up a little bit, and it would have made it almost a perfect experience. I honestly, for a good hour and a half, I didn't even realize the time was going by. I was just so in awe of everything that was happening. That's totally my only downside to it. So if $10 is full price admission, I give it $8.50. Could have been a perfect movie, though. I mean, I you should see this in a theater with a whole crowd of people. What do you give it?
Same. I echo all of your statements and your score.
Okay, recent film or TV recommendations we haven't already talked about. I think I've talked plenty. John, have you seen anything recently?
Let's see. So let me start this off by saying that I finally jumped on the boat for The Expanse, and I sat down and watched the entirety of the series from starting at Christmas and just finished it up last week. And I got to tell you, that's a pretty incredible show. Aaron, I don't think you should ever watch it, but it's a pretty incredible show.
Noted. I won't.
I didn't watch anything new.
Nothing?
I watched Tick Tick Boom again.
Jesus. You got a problem. Yeah,
okay.
Such a problem.
I haven't even gone back to Tick Tick Boom, but I've also watched the first 2 episodes of Halo, and it looks intriguing. I hope it turns into something really great. And the first episode of Moon Knight, which was fantastic.
Moon Knight is so good. It really is. So it really captures dissociative identity disorder in an excellent fashion. Like I love how they're doing it.
Oh, but I have been watching Picard.
Yeah?
Which
doesn't count.
The second, screw you. Picard is awesome. It's currently the second season of Picard, and it's actually got Terry Matalas, who did 12 Monkeys, is actually show running it this year, and it has Terry's fingerprints all over it. Has a little bit of Roger Moore, Battlestar Galactica fame flair to it as well. It's actually really, really great. It's got the Borg, it's got Q, it's got Guinan, and everything you could just absolutely love that Picard would run into in his entire existence in one fantastic season thus far. I really love what they're doing with the Borg Queen and how she's integrated into the show. It's been actually a real treat to watch, and it just makes me like super excited for Strange New Worlds to come as soon as Picard is over.
All right. Well, before we move on to our From the Outside In topic, I got to talk to you guys about Scream. I love Ghostface. I love these movies. I think they're fantastic. And you can own the all-new Scream movie on 4K, Ultra HD, and Blu-ray right now. It stars Neve Campbell, David Arquette, and Courtney Cox. Scream is certified fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. You can own it today and get killer bonus content, including interviews with the cast, deleted scenes, and a whole lot more. It was directed by Matt Bettinelli-Olpin and Tyler Gillette. It was rated R, and it's from Paramount Pictures as well. And I got to say, they've already got another sequel coming out next year, so you have to get Scream so you can be caught up. It's great. It's really, really just damn good. And we are giving away some copies of this as well, so if you want to be entered in for your opportunity to win a copy of Scream, email us contests@thehollywoodoutsider.com, contests@thehollywoodoutsider.com. Use Scream as a subject line, your name, and you'll be entered into the pot to possibly win a copy. Now let's go to our From the Outside In topic. Journey through the multiverses, because there's a lot of them coming out. This is going to be a conversation about the multitude of movies and TV shows that now have established multiverses as a core concept. Marvel, DC, they have them. Spider-Man's doing it. Doctor Strange has it coming out. DC's got their Flash movie coming out, which is going to be their version of a multiverse. But it's also expanding into unique and new properties like Everything Everywhere All at Once is huge on the multiverse concept. Joel Edgerton's upcoming Apple series Dark Matter, same kind of concept. So what do you think about this concept as a whole of utilizing the multiverse?
All of my favorite shows are multiverse shows. So I absolutely love this. Yeah, I mean, start with Fringe, for example. Fringe, probably one of the best uses of multiverse to actually explain how things are actually changing between each season and the characters and how they grow and how they actually have to work together to save each other's sides of the equation. I think it's probably one of the best uses of multiverse that I can think of.
What do they do specifically that makes you go, that's why this is one of the best uses of this?
I could say, but it kind of gives away the surprise of the show.
I'll dance around it a little bit. Give us an idea.
Basically, there's a mad scientist who is experimenting on both sides of the universe. His version is experimenting on both sides. And based on the experiment, one of the children dies. And as such, the child of the other universe basically becomes the focal point of the war between the two doctors. And that is the crux of the show. And based on that one decision, it escalates the war between the two universes, and they fight against each other, where really they should have been thinking about something that's really more important, and that's the future actually coming back to fight them, because of this war, it's actually ruined the future. And so instead of working together, they've been working against each other this whole time. So they have to learn how to work together to fight what's coming from the future.
Okay. I kind of wanted your some assessment of why that one does it so well.
That's only because Aaron still hasn't finished watching the show.
I sure haven't. Yeah.
Well, the other side of it is that you get to see the two sides of every coin. In each coin being a character of the show, you get to see the what if nature of what that character would be if such and such thing happened, and that's why it does it so well and so seamlessly. It's just like the whole concept of multiverses work out because, in one season you got a character, or one place you got a character that's a villain, but yet you still kind of like that villain. But then you get to see him someplace else in a multiverse version of himself, and now you're kind of allowed to like him because he's not a villain anymore, but he's still more or less the same character. So there's a lot of aspects that you get to play with and reuse characters in different aspects that really it's just a lot of fun.
I think there's another way you could look at multiverses too, and it's a sense that it's a character yet you never see. But because you never see it, it drives the motivations of the characters within their own context. A great example of this would be The Leftovers. So you have the people that were the ones that are quote unquote still here and weren't the ones that crossed over to the other side. And all they do for the entire show is think about, well, what if it would have been me? What if I could have gone over there? Would my life have been better? Some even try to build a machine so that they could actually try to traverse and go over to the other side. And because of that, and you never see what the other side is, but because it's always present, it becomes a character in itself for the show. And it just drives the entire narrative because it's always a possibility to go there.
What do you think is most appealing about it? Is it the ability to see different sides of the coin, like you guys kind of talked about, or is it the ability for writers to kind of retcon their own choices? I mean, in a way, they can do that, but it's also, you can create layered performances from actors because they can play things different ways because of multiple worlds, etc.
Well, there's the surprise aspects of it. There's a certain movie that has a certain award named after it that we have that plays with the concept of multiverses, and I don't want to. That's the one. Okay. I didn't want to really say which one it is because
you just want people to go dig through like hours and hours of podcasts to try to get.
I'm trying to get our numbers up, man.
Jesus, it's Coherence. Go look it up.
Yes, it's Coherence. Go pick it up. It's a good movie. Anyhow, here you have a movie that plays with that whole aspect of multiverses, and at no point throughout the movie do you know, once it finally lands, like what you're dealing with, you don't know who belongs where, what's going on, how, and which direction everything is going, and it's the surprise nature of it all.
I think, like you said, it also gives the writers the ability to expand on stories and just kind of think like, what if? Right. Two that come to mind would be Man in the High Castle. Like, what if the Germans and Japanese ended up winning World War II? What would have happened had that occurred, and what would have happened in the United States? I think it's a fantastic idea. And then the way that they actually traverse between the Nazi controlled, Axis Reich of the current day into the other side so that they can understand what actually is happening to bring back that information. And then, of course, that drives the whole port of the Nazi machine towards the end of season 4. I think that's just fascinating when you think about some of the things that could have happened, had one butterfly effect gone a different way. Sliders is another great example where the whole point of the show was, oh crap, we slid to another parallel world and we can't get home. And so every time they encounter another world, it's, well, what if penicillin wasn't made? Or what if, the women were in charge and men were slaves, or a couple of the other ones. And then it became this whole thing where the Cro-Mags, where they never were truly fully developed humans, they ended up invading because of the time or the world jumping that they take place on. And then all of the worlds were now basically in jeopardy because the Cro-Mags were going to take over the whole thing. So I love that it just creates content that you wouldn't even think of because you're not boxed in.
You know what I think is fascinating about multiverses in general is I've talked to other film buffs and whatnot in recent times, especially since Spider-Man came out, and that really kind of amplified the multiverse, and Into the Spider-Verse did too, the whole multiverse concept. And they were acting like this is new. Marvel created this whole idea. I'm like, man, there have been stories like this being told for decades. What are you talking about? It's exploding in popularity maybe right now because I think people are running out of ideas. I mean, you can just tell by the amount of remakes we have, but this is not a new concept. This has been around for some time.
It's like Marvel's Apple and can't do any wrong.
It's true. That's so true. That's so true. You know, would you guys consider the Tarantino revisionist history kind of a multiverse? You know,
absolutely.
Inglourious Bastards and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
Absolutely. I think both of them are a multiverse kind of movie. They play with the idea of what if. Inglourious Bastards, what if you sent a bunch of psychopaths into Germany and they actually succeeded at killing Hitler? Django Unchained, you know, what if this whole thing? Like, I guess it's more of like, I don't know if that's really revisionist, but
that one's
definitely
not revisionist. That's more of a just fictional storytelling.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That's the movie, right?
Mm-hmm.
What the hell's wrong with my brain? Anyhow,
we're in the alternate universe where it stopped working, I guess, where you have,
I guess
that's what you get for making bad jokes earlier in the show. This is what happens.
What?
Yeah. Karma. I think it's called karma. I don't believe in karma, but I think it's hitting you anyway.
Say it ain't so, Aaron.
I think the other cool aspect is spirituality. In any kind of like spiritual realm concepts that you would run into. Think like Stranger Things is one that comes to mind. With the Upside Down.
The Upside Down, yeah.
Another great one is Awake. It was a 1-season TV series, police drama, but he literally was, fluctuating back and forth in his own mind between what was real and what wasn't, as he was dealing with this kind of like illness that he had in his brain. Leftovers.
The OA?
What's that?
The OA?
The OA. Yeah, very similar. Same thing. Leftovers again, very spiritual in that regard. It's just a lot of cool stuff that you get to play with because you're not boxed into the standard way of the world working.
Now, another question I have is, do you think it's fair to constantly have multiverses at our narrative beck and call? Or do you think sometimes it's just an easy answer to never kill a character or make for the easy redemption? Because you can just go to a different world and pluck them from there.
Well, I mean, for me, I think the hard part about this is I love the concept when it's done right. And when it's the character and the driving force of the program or the movie, when you're using it as the gimmick, I think is where it suffers, right? Because you're saying, oh, because we have a multiverse, we can bring Superman back to life. Or, oh, because we got a multiverse, we can, have this most awesomest movie ever that didn't get nominated for an Oscar that literally saved movie theaters. Yeah. I mean, it's a fun moment, but it's a gimmick, right? You don't get 3 Spider-Man showing up at once unless there's a multiverse. So like that's the part where the multiverse scares me, because you can literally just make up stuff to make your story work versus telling a really good story to begin with in the first place.
And don't you worry about it being confusing for audiences to some degree? I mean, there has to be an aspect of that, because when you have a multiverse, you're having to keep, I mean, you know how it is with Fringe, and I watched most of Fringe. I just didn't finish it. But you've got, okay, that's 2 worlds. It's a little easier to keep 2 worlds in mind. With Spider-Man, multiple verses. Doctor Strange, it seems to be going in the same direction where you're going to have multiple verses. Like, I don't want to have to keep track of all this stuff. And I also don't want them to feel like they can just do anything they want and they don't have to follow any kind of rules anymore because they have this wide open multiverse. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like there has to be some kind of set parameters for the stories that they're telling, instead of just, I have to keep track of all this stuff, or you could just do whatever the hell you want. I'm concerned about it. I'm not against it yet. I have concerns about it.
I think with anything else, it's a matter of responsibility and in the use of a tool. So, use a tool irresponsibly, it's going to be obvious. Use it responsibly, it's also going to be obvious, but in the positive way. You're going to have people who know exactly how to use it, but at the same time, you can't treat your audience as if they're all going to be brain dead, toothless weirdos going to the movie theater. treat us like we're smart and make something smart and use it smart, and we'll be okay.
Yeah, I mean, Star Trek, I think, did a really great job in Star Trek Discovery, because Star Trek has always had this concept of the mirrorverse through most of its history. And when Star Trek Discovery comes onto the screen and you're like, okay, well, how are we going to tell a story that's post-Enterprise yet pre-Kirk and actually make it interesting? And how they leverage the mirrorverse in that first season, especially when you see the twist when it happens, and you're just kind of like, "Oh snap!" I did not see that coming.
How do they utilize that? Nobody's going to go back and watch Discovery right now, but how do they utilize the mirror universe as you saw it?
They actually planted. So in the mirror universe, it's called the Terran Empire, and so they've actually planted spies from the Terran Empire on our side of the rift, or whatever you want to call it.
So one universe planted spies in another universe, essentially.
Yeah.
Okay.
But you don't know it because they obviously look exactly the same
Sounds
as
like
you.
Fringe.
It does sound like Fringe, yeah.
But when it's tied into the negotiations that they're having around the Klingons and how the Klingon houses are finally coming together for the first time to become the Klingon Empire, and they're trying to like disrupt that and disable that, I think that makes just for a fascinating story, because it's a story we've never seen before in Star Trek lore.
That sounds interesting. All right, so where do you guys see this going in terms of taking storytelling to a different level? I've thought about this, and I'm like, this would be really cool if you could move it into genres that it normally wouldn't be in. I would like to see a Western multiverse in some aspect. I think that could be very cool. You have, maybe the same time frame with different levels of advancement, civilization advancement. So there's different technologies and whatnot. I would like to see something like that. Like, where do you see, what kinds of things could you see happening with the storytelling, with the multiverse as a concept?
I don't know if I want something like a Western. It just seems kind of cheesy, no offense. But
you shut up. You just raved about a mirror ball or whatever. Disco universe, whatever the hell that was. The YMCA, the Village People universe.
The YMCA.
Disco was the short name for Discovery, so that is true.
That's so funny.
The one that really struck me, I think, from a multiverse perspective, was a show called Devs, Devs. It was 8 episodes, FX on Hulu.
That's the Alex Garland show.
Alex Garland. And I mean, we all know how much we loved, Ex Machina, and most of what Garland does, we've pretty much raved about it here on the Hollywood Outsider. But Devs was such an interesting show because it's not that there was a multiverse per se. It was more around the concept of predestination. So if I take a step, was that step predetermined that I was going to take that step? Or if I would have stepped 2 centimeters to the left or 2 centimeters to the right, what kind of permutations of universes could exist? And they were building tech to be able to see those other scenarios and those other universes so that they could then install themselves into the perfect utopia path. And I think that's the stuff that you just kind of go like, man, like religion, spirituality, existence, like all the big questions that we have about life in general. And then you start trying to piece that together in some plausible way. That's fascinating to me. Westerns where they use Nerf guns instead of bullets, like not so much.
I don't know why you hate Westerns, but fine.
I think about this like like a spy thriller done this way would be kind of cool. There's actually a show called Counterpart that stars J.K. Simmons that executes it pretty well as far as a multiverse idea of a universe where you got J.K. Simmons on one side of one universe and he's kind of this like bookish, nerdy guy, exactly what J.K. Simmons can do. But then his counterpart on the other side is actually like a super spy. And again, exactly what J.K. Simmons can do pretty well. I like that aspect of doing things as far as finding a way to use that storytelling to do it. But what I think a great tool in the multiverse is it's a great way to first ground your character. So you can come in, ground your character in one way, and then slip them into the multiverse to then open up the world to yourself, to the viewer, and really take them on a trip through, whether it's a space adventure or whether it's a adventure in a different version of Earth or even a different planet, but using the multiverse that way to kind of ground them and then take them on a trip.
When you said spy thriller, I was kind of thinking to myself, does Tenet work is Tenet a multiverse because of the ability to go backwards, even though you're in the same reality?
That's interesting because you at one point in the film, you definitely have the same character on both sides, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Engaging each other. So I would say yes, to a degree, wouldn't you? I mean, if the character is fighting himself, wouldn't that be a multiverse?
Yeah, technically it is, because one character is moving forward, the other character is moving backwards. And again, that's another movie that actually takes the concept, turns it on its side a little bit, and turns into something that's pretty fantastic. And, you know, the whole trick of that movie is just pretty well done.
I love the idea. I think there's so many ways that they could take these things. I get concerned about Marvel's uses of it, but then every time I get really concerned about the multiverse as a concept, because I just don't want to have to think that hard. I see something like, you know, Everything Everywhere All at Once, where they're utilizing the full potential of what the multiverse concept can utilize. And, you know, you're seeing one actor portray 10 different roles. And I'm like, that's fascinating if you do it right. They, in my opinion, managed to do it right. But, you know, I'm sure there's a lot of filmmakers that are going to do that way wrong. I just don't want it to be like this get out of jail free card where story doesn't matter anymore. There are no more stakes because it's too easy to just pluck a character from a different multiverse and bring him back. Look, character's still alive. See, we just went and stole that kid from the other universe. Yay, he's alive. You know, I want stakes to matter. I want real heart and actual consequences for actions. I think that's important in storytelling. I worry that the multiverse concept is going to kind of be a little too forgiving for some kinds of films.
Warner Brothers actually is a perfect example, as far as the CW shows, a perfect example of how the multiverse is actually being abused, because for all those reasons. Superman's dead over here. Well, let's just bring him back over here from this universe. And, you know, this character's dead over here. Well, here he is again. Like, there's a lot of that happens over there. And it makes it really hard to watch because of the complete overuse of it with those shows on CW. I'm not saying DC can't make a good show. I'm just saying those CW shows abuse the crap out of the multiverse.
They had a good 3 or 4 years, and now it's ridiculous.
Right.
Yeah. It's pretty just crazy at this point.
The exception that makes a rule, is that what I'm looking for?
Yeah, feels right.
Yeah.
Feels good. Got 3 listener comments I want to mention. We post the topic in our group, and we kind of ask listeners what they think. Stuart Bannerman said, I am not a fan. And we're just asking, what do you think of the multiverse concept? I am not a fan. Having to make sure I see every film or show and in the right order drives me nuts. The shared universe multiverse was fun to begin with, but it's become as annoying as post-credit sequences. What do you guys say to that?
Post-credit sequences are amazing. You shut up.
Not in Morbius, they're not. Just saying.
You had to make it that far first.
That's fair. Touche. They should have put those in the beginning. Better likelihood that people will watch them.
You know, I mean, I guess what I can say to that is that, you know, ultimately he sums it up pretty well himself. He's not a fan of it, but there is a group of people. It's not something that's made specifically for Stuart. I'm sorry, Stuart. It is something that's made for a greater mass than that. And you'll find there's people who are fans of things, and there's people who are not fans of things. I tend to find them to be enjoyable. Troy just says they're enjoyable. I do think the idea of the multiverse can be abused, like I pulled up with Warner Brothers, did it with CW shows. But overall, I like the concept. But I get it. I get what his concern is.
Yeah, the way Stuart's pointing it out here, though, is he's also talking about individual shows and individual properties making up the multiverse, so you'd have to see them in a particular order. I think that's a load of crap.
Yeah,
right?
I do too.
Yeah, use the multiverse in a singular movie for the movie concept, or a singular TV series for a TV series concept. But if you start saying like, oh, this movie happened, oh, here's a great example, like the multiverse of Fast and the Furious where Han's alive. Like, that's dumb.
That's the only way that some bitch lived. It had to be a multiverse.
It's the only way. It is 100% a multiverse by episode 9.
It's so funny. Yeah, I don't like that. I've never liked that concept. I want the ability to not watch certain characters I don't care about. And I shouldn't have to skip, even though I like Moon Knight, I shouldn't have to skip a show like Moon Knight or, you know, and be punished when I go see Doctor Strange. Like if it's very pivotal to Doctor Strange, I don't think that's fair. I don't think it's fair as a fan. So far, it hasn't really been the case, but I know that that's what they're building to, and I don't think that is fair as a fan. So I'm with him on that. Drew Ross says, I like it, especially when you don't know what to expect. Creators could do some pretty creative stuff. I'm pumped for Doctor Strange and who might show up in the film. Yeah, you're probably going to get Ben Affleck as Daredevil or something.
That would be amazing.
Would it?
Daredevil? Come on, it'd be great.
Okay. Stefan Smitterbeck says, if the story is good and held together, makes sense, and timelines and stuff don't make it messy, then it's all right. The new Spider-Man did it really well, but it probably works due to the heavy fan service that they deliver. So do you think Spider-Man, if they wouldn't have had so much fan service, if they just stuck with the multiple villains and everything, do you think that would have worked as well without all the heavy fan service?
I don't think that bringing the 3 Spider-Mans was fan service, though. The movie was, the story of the movie was, I need people to forget who I am, so create this spell. The spell is what created the multiverse, which made the opportunity for 3 Spider-Mans to show up. Now, granted, everybody might have wanted the 3 Spider-Mans to be there, and yeah, maybe that was a fan request, but it wasn't like 3 Spider-Man show up, build the story around it. I don't think that's how it went. I think they truly went because they had the starting point at the end of the second movie, right? It's like, oh, Peter Parker's identity is out there. Let's build a movie off of Peter Parker's identity is out there, and how do we reverse that? I think that's the case. So I think that it was great. It was a great movie across the board, and they finally got the whole emotional impact that we've been missing with No Uncle Ben.
We should note, this is just to close this out. We've had this debate. We had a big, long conversation about it a month or two ago about the whole Daredevil not being canon, according to Marvel. Well, they've reversed that decision, and now they say that Daredevil is canon. And I'm like, you don't have to say that publicly because we saw Spider-Man. He's in the movie. He's canon. It's just like, okay. I just don't understand. And I love that fans are saying, well, they came out and said it, so now he's canon. I'm like, bitch, did you see the movie? They don't have to say shit. He's canon. I don't understand. All right. Well, share your thoughts on this episode or anything else in our Facebook group. We're on Twitter at @BuyPopcorn. Our site is thehollywoodoutsider.com. Please rate and subscribe us on your preferred podcast app. Share the show on your social media outlets. Tell your friends. Tell them you like The Hollywood Outsider. You can find John's artwork on Insta and Twitter at rjohndraws, Amanda on Veronica's Marshmallows and Smirk and at Sink Into This, Troy at Troy Heinrichs and The Blacklist Exposed and Beyond Westworld, me as well. I'm Presenting Hitchcock and at Aaron Smirks. Ken in Chicago hit us up on Twitter at BuyPopcorn with a question. What if you weren't outsiders, but insiders, actually making the movies? What job in movie making would you want? John, you can go first.
I think we've been asked this question once before, and I think when I answered it that time, I said I would be an art director. But I think this time what I would like to be is the showrunner for a series.
Any particular kind of series?
There's one in particular I'm thinking about would be like the one that I joke around about. If it was ever going to happen, I would have to be the showrunner for it, which would be the Dresden Files TV series.
A revamp of it.
A revamp.
Or a complete revamp of it, yes.
Which we need. We definitely do need.
We definitely do need. Definitely do need.
Troy?
I mean, I have all kinds of wacky ideas. So writer seems like that would make sense. But I think I would have to go with practical effects.
Really? Why practical effects? That's interesting.
I just think
think
it'd be fun to like make stuff all the time and be just like, you know, here's a problem. How do we solve it? Put it together and boom, you get to see that come to life. I think that'd just be like super fulfilling.
Raise your hand if you had Vanilla Ice in your head just now. Guilty.
You know, I just actually sat down and rewatched all of the Face-Off episodes, and yeah, that's a good fun one.
Oh man, well, in truth, I'd probably end up just being a fluffer, but I would like to be a writer. Obviously, I love to write. I think that's where my passion is, but I have a great propensity for ideas. I can lay out an idea from start to finish, and it's easier for me to come up with an idea than it is to actually realize it in full. I can't tell you how many ideas. I mean, go listen to Smirk podcast. I mean, I would pop those out in no time at all. I can come up with ideas constantly. So I know if there's I could do pitches. I would like to be a pitch guy. I would just go and just pitch after pitch after pitch. And I think I would be successful at it, but I don't know if that's an actual job. I know there's people that do it. I don't know if it's a full-time job, but I want that job if it is.
All right. Pitch the Dresden Files to us so John can get a job.
Done. That feels like a pretty easy pitch.
Sweet.
Read the book. Sold. All right. Now what we're going to do is we're going to say, this is the end of the show. We're going to do the tagline. You're going to hear the music. And then afterward, we'll final out that whole slap thing. So, Troy, I think you got to go, though, right?
I'll stick for a little bit.
Okay. Oh. All right. We're going to stick around. We're all going to be here. But remember, the next time you head to a theater or sit comfortably on your couch streaming from home, buy popcorn. Okay. We're back. Welcome back. This is the latest on the slap heard around the world. This is Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars. The Academy is meeting on April 18th to determine a final say on what the punishment will be. Also, Big Willie style, Will Smith, he resigned from the Academy due to his actions. He had a very seemingly heartfelt apology that he put out there. He's kind of getting ahead of the game. He's resigning before they could punish him. Interesting. But he still faces repercussions from them as well as the Screen Actors Guild. And that could actually affect his ability to work on certain projects because the Screen Actors Guild is actually directly involved with the actors. The Oscars are kind of the celebration of those actors, which is technically a workplace function, which is why the Screen Actors Guild is getting involved. So that's what the story is. I mean, we still don't know exactly what's going to happen in terms of their punishment, but we do know Will Smith resigned from the Academy. He's going to work on himself, yada, yada, yada. So that's what the story is. Where are we on all of this now that we're a week and a half out, maybe 2 weeks by the time people listen to this? Where are you at with the Will Smith slap?
Watching the very well done version of the fish character that Will Smith voiced and the zebra character that Chris Rock voiced. And it literally has the fish character walking up on stage and slapping the zebra. It's like, I just watch it over and over again because it's so well done. Give that person a job.
Is that on YouTube or something?
That person
TikTok?
It was on.
I shared it to you people.
That's right. That's right. I tuned it out because he's never here. I don't know who that guy was. So I was like, who is sending me videos? I do not want to click it. This could be spam.
What a coincidence! I tuned you guys out.
Ooh.
No, I mean, I had my thoughts the day after. Violence is never the answer. There's 1,000 different ways to like work this stuff out. Still remain it's a case. Still should be punished. There's no reason for it. And then there were like other incidents that people have done, like he's on red carpets and stuff. And there was an incident where a guy tried to kiss him, and then like in that process, and I couldn't tell if it was even a foreign country when you watch the video because you can't tell.
It was like France or something like that,
which could be a cultural thing, and we'll just smack the back.
No, it's not a cultural thing. That guy himself actually has a thing where he likes to embarrass actors on the red carpet. So there's a time, and there's a time he went after Tom Cruise with like a water spraying microphone to get him in the face while for one of the things. So that guy is always out there trying to elicit some sort of reaction from movie stars.
But the reaction that Will Smith gave was a backhand to the face, and then the comment he makes after that, while the cameras are still rolling, clearly establishes pattern of behavior.
Well,
that's true. I mean, there's truth to that.
There is truth to that.
Even if you're joking around, it doesn't matter. Like you joke about it, you still did it.
But don't get me wrong, I'd have smacked that guy too. So I'm actually on his side at that particular moment.
Right. Like my feelings on the whole thing that went down is to mirror some of what Troy was saying. Violence is absolutely never ever an answer. I mean, sure, you can. There's always a reason to choose violence, but there's a bigger reason to not choose it. He made a mistake. He knew what he did. He had, he could have made the choice to walk away, but he didn't. Ultimately, though, I feel so sorry for Will Smith. And the reason why I feel sorry for Will Smith, I mean, yes, Chris Rock was absolutely embarrassed. Everyone who attended is embarrassed for him. Like, there's a lot of feelings that went around this. I feel bad for Will Smith because, and only because, like, what I saw was a guy who was having a great night, who even laughed at a joke, but because of some sort of conditioning or something that that may be going on, and this is my speculation, in his private life, he felt like the only recourse he had was to walk on stage and smack a guy, because otherwise the rest of his night was going to be hell or something for enjoying himself in a moment where he should be enjoying himself.
I don't feel that way. We should also mention that he had a movie, I think Fast and Loose for Netflix, that's been put on hold. Bad Boys 4 was put on hold because of all this.
Yep.
I 100% don't think Will Smith should lose his career over this. Like, I just don't. I mean, it's one issue. I think it should be addressed. I think it's a horrible issue, but come on. I mean, lose his career. I really want Bad Boys 4. This is a selfish thing on my part. I want Bad Boys 4. But I also don't want the guy to lose his career. I mean, there are a couple points that I think are valid, though. I mean, Chris Rock hasn't actually spoken on the event, but his brother has. And he said, Chris didn't know about her alopecia. Okay, so many people have made this the argument that this is why he's justified, because it was wrong to go after her medical. He made a short hair joke. If this is the case, he doesn't know about alopecia, about her hair situation, then he just made a joke about her short haircut. That is a completely different argument that you can't even have anymore. If that is the case, I mean, I can't speak for Chris Rock, but I would think his brother could. And I'm just going to assume that's correct, because everybody I've seen talk about it that actually knows Chris Rock has said, as edgy as he is, he would not make a joke about that if he knew about it. He even made a documentary about black women's hair. I mean, yeah, he is conscious of this, so he wouldn't just do that if he knew about it. And so in that mindset, look, I've got nothing but respect for Chris Rock. I'm honestly, as time has gotten away from that whole situation, I've become more impressed with how he handled it, because I know I don't know if I would have the composure in that particular setting to just let that slide, but he did. He's fast with a quip, and he didn't even do that. I mean, he's really one of the fastest people out there in comedy. Go watch him. Like, his retorts are legendary. If you really go watch some of his talk show, there's tons of clips of him just destroying people. He could have humiliated Will with words, and he chose not to. And you can tell that in his performance now that you've seen it 16 billion times. So I feel bad for Will Smith, because obviously he's got something going on that he would just ruin everyone's night as well as his own. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. On the same token, I don't feel bad for the bad press he's gotten. I mean,
no, I don't feel bad for the bad press he's gotten.
Not at all.
Like, he's gotten.
This is your doing.
He's gotten everything he. Right. Like, he deserves the punishment, and he deserves like this spotlight being shined on like the negative part of his personality. He deserves absolutely everything about it. I'm just saying that I feel like as somebody who's been through really shitty situations in my life, that I can see.
You can see a mental break. You can see a break.
Right.
Yeah.
I can see the mental break where all sense and sensibility and reasonable thought just goes out the window, only because he's got to make it through the next 24 hours so he can get to sleep again or whatever it is. Like, that's the only thing I'm saying. Like, there's something like mental health wise, there's a lot going on in that one moment of his life that shines a light of what's possibly going on in him, just like in his heart and his soul, everything. And it's not a pretty place. It's not. There's a lot of hurt that he's carrying around, and I feel for that. But I also think he deserves everything he's getting.
Which is why you recuse yourself.
It's an interesting conundrum. Like, it really is. It's a very interesting conundrum.
That's why you recuse yourself and say, for a short period of time, I'm going to remove myself from the scene. I'm going to go get some anger management training or some whatever, like just do betterment training and stuff, so that you can show that you've done the work, so you can earn the respect back of the people that you need to work for in your next project. If you just start doing work again the next day, it's like, well, what kind of punishment was that? Right. And then people don't take it seriously, and they fear it might happen to them. Yeah,
I did see that Chris Rock, his brother, because like I said, Chris Rock hasn't spoken about it, but he didn't take Will Smith's apology, because he didn't apologize to Chris when he accepted that award publicly, and he still hadn't called Chris Rock at the last he heard. So I mean, I get that. So if you're just doing it publicly, that does feel like PR. I mean, both of his apologies kind of read like PR manuscripts, which That's what happens in that town. But the one thing I hope people take away is they're always human. Like, I feel like people put movie stars and actors and influencers on such pedestals, and I'm like, they're just people with egos. They are not the same people. The same people you see on screen are very rarely the same people that you would meet in person in a private parking lot or something. It's a different world. It's all about appearance for them. That their livelihood depends on their appearance at all times. And that's why it's affected him so negatively, because he kind of took a steaming shit all over the very industry that he works in. It would be no different than you going to wherever you work and you have a big work dinner and you get on stage and you smack one of the other employees. It's not going to bode well for you, most likely. Unless you work at Walmart. I don't know what the rules are there.
I think there's a prerequisite there, isn't it?
They actually have a smacking contest.
Yeah, it's like, all right, here's your award for Employee of the Month. Now we're going to all line up and smack you in the face for it.
So what do you guys think? What's the time frame? Like, how long does he have to do the work for? I mean, it's not like there's so many other people in Hollywood who've done so much worse than Will Smith have done. And I still don't understand how Roman Polanski still gets celebrated in some way, or has been celebrated over the years. I just don't understand that. So what do you think the time frame is? 6 months, a year? How long does he need to stay out of the limelight to come back for full Will?
I would say at most 6 months.
Yeah, I was saying 3 to 6.
You're gonna have somebody's gonna get caught with like a pygmy pig in the corner of a room somewhere, and that's gonna be the story. Within the next 3 months, a pygmy pig,
like they're diddling it or something.
Yeah, I mean, you want to get like really descriptive about it. You're the weirdo.
That's where your brain went immediately. I don't think I'm the weirdo in this situation. Yeah. All right. So you guys agree 3-6 months. Okay. Now, what do you think the Academy should do? Because they're still going to do something. I think he should be banned from the Oscars for a period of time, at least. Because technically, by him recusing himself, which I really can't tell if that's just a strategic move to make it look like he's to avoid some kind of penalty or something in his mind.
That's absolutely what it is. Oh, I'm going to quit before you fire me.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it was. He basically said, I know I'm going to get kicked out of the Academy anyway, so here's my resignation letter.
Like, he should lose his eligibility for like 5 years or something like that.
Shouldn't be allowed to come. Shouldn't be eligible. Nothing.
Shouldn't be eligible. Like, come or not, I don't know. But he shouldn't be eligible for an Oscar for the next 5 years.
I don't know.
And I mean,
I don't know if it's like
his days of making action movies or popcorn movies are kind of behind him. He is in that part of his career where he would be making more or less Oscar movies. So
I think that's going to become in the court of public opinion anyway. You lose your chance to vote 100%, right? There's no like Academy privileges, but if a work gets submitted that he's acted in the coming years, I am sure the voters are going to remember how you disgraced the ceremony, and they're not going to vote for him anyway. So it's not like you have to like state you know never be put on a ballot for a period of time or whatever. But I think during the course of the award show, if he shows up, he's got to sit in the gallery in the second level.
Jeez, you don't get this. No floor for you, buddy.
Yeah, that way he can never make it onto stage. He's got to go through like 3 levels of security to get down, because that's where all the common people sit.
Oh shit, Willie's on the move. We got to stop him.
I love Troy's approach. He's like, well, we'll just humiliate you then. If you want to come, you can come, but you're at the top.
Yeah,
you're hanging out with the seat fillers family. That's how up at the top you are.
Exactly.
Oh man,
you're up by the art directors.
Oof, just sad.
See, all the people up here, they got awarded the night before.
So sad. And I got to say, the Academy needs to do some work on themselves, too. I don't care what Chris Rock told him to do or what he was thinking about doing. It's your responsibility. The fact that he was not
removed from the ceremony immediately is just a blight on the Academy itself.
That's how you know it's all about power there. Because he's a very powerful actor, and they didn't, secretly, whether they want to admit it or not, they didn't want to pull Will Smith out of that room, regardless of the fact that he just went up and slapped one of your presenters in front of like millions of people. We still don't want to be the people that pull Will Smith out of this.
I'm just saying, I mean, I'm sure Denzel would have won if Will didn't win, but I mean, they could have just taken it away from Will and given it to Andrew Garfield.
Right. It's all about
2 of the greatest movies of the year.
what do you think they're going to do? Like Denzel just goes up, rips it from his hands and tosses it to Andrew Garfield? Like that's your dream?
No, I'm saying Denzel would have actually won the award.
Okay.
If Will hadn't gotten the award. I mean, it was a stretch for Andrew Garfield to win, but Andrew Garfield did one hell of a job to embody Jonathan Larson in that role.
I think that's a perfect way to end this because that would have been a perfect ending to the Oscars. Denzel actually walks up to Will while he's holding his winning trophy, pulls it from him and said, the devil came from you. The devil came for you and threw it to Andrew Garfield.
Perfect. Cut, print.
On that note, we're out. Everybody, you have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.